What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of First Things THRST. This one is a little bit different as I will be introducing a guest that is highly anticipated by all of you lot. And he's Mike Thurston. This is a solo podcast where I will be taking some time out to answer a lot of your questions. And by the way, can I just thank each and every one of you for showing some love on this podcast? We are nearly at 200,000 subscribers, which is pretty damn impressive. Just got to keep it going. Hopefully soon we'll hit that 1 mil, but we've got a lot of work to do. So I've categorized some of these questions into specific categories when it comes to health, fitness, wellness, business, podcast, branding, etc. So in no particular order, we will start with question 1. What does the morning routine look like? Well, I'll be very honest with you. I don't have one. Even though there's been times where I've tried to stick with one, it usually doesn't last very long. So my routine on an average day is me waking up when I naturally wake up, no alarm. I go into my kitchen, I have some water, I make myself a coffee. I go towards my window, I look out at the view and drink my coffee. Spend 10 to 15 minutes just contemplating on life and planning my day. I like slow mornings. It generally takes me a while to wake up. But each day is different depending upon what it is that I'm doing. So the routine will differ. Sometimes I've just got to get up and get straight to it. Next question. How do I relax / mitigate stress? This person says, I'm fighting stress and anxiety at 21. Well, I would love to know what it is that you are doing or have going on in your life at the age of 21 where you're feeling as though you're massively anxious and stressed, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think it's going to get a whole lot worse. So one thing about stress, which I have recently come to the realization, is that it's just a part of life. And in many ways, it's actually a good thing, because stress is the thing that actually gets you up off your arse and doing things. Stress is having a deadline and having to do whatever it is that you need to do in order to meet that deadline. So it's a good thing. But of course, excess stress, whether it be mental or physical, can be detrimental to your health and well-being. So a few things which I do to eliminate it, or at least reduce it, is to take a moment and think about all the times in the past when I have been stressed. And each and every time that I have been stressed, life has just turned out fine. Like the things which I have stressed about the most have actually in reality been nothing to stress about. So keep that in mind when it comes to you ever feeling stressed. Like literally everything is going to be okay. Sometimes what I'll do as well is spend time with people, maybe it's a lady friend, who distracts me from myself and whatever it is that is causing me stress, usually work and business related. I could go off for a couple of hours with them and I completely forget about everything that I was worried about. And it's great to have that moment of time where you take a break from it. However, it can be problematic when you do tend to spend too much time with that specific person. For example, going away on a vacation with somebody can be great, can be a completely stress-free trip. However, things start to fall behind, work just starts to catch up. And if anything, I actually get more anxious because I know there's things that I need to do, which I'm not doing because I'm too busy fanning around Europe, frolicking on the beach, naked, with a girl. No, wearing clothes. Another thing is just maybe having a massage. Like just having a good massage, taking a moment out to relax, meditate. Meditation is something which will be on the list of goals which I would like to do on a daily basis, and that may perhaps be added to my morning routine if all things go well. But just understand stress is a part of life, and it always will be a part of life. And those people who have achieved great things and have become very successful have a very solid ability to tolerate stress. So it's not really about reducing it, but more so how to deal with it. Okay. And I would say I'm not the master at that, but I would say I live a pretty stress-free life. And that has come at some costs, particularly financial costs. I've said no to a lot of business opportunities Financial opportunities, purely because I know it's just going to be headache. Like, I don't have any property, I don't have any kids, I don't have a partner. Like, I can do what I want when I want, and life is pretty good. Of course, it's not going to last forever, but right now it's great. Next question. Top 3 destinations for travel. Well, this is very dependent upon what it is that you are looking for in terms of the travel. Do you want a very unique and memorable experience, or do you just want to go and have a good time? I'm going to be very biased and just give you my top 3 locations. The first one, and probably will always be number 1 in my book, is the island of Ibiza, because it's just a fucking great place. I love it there. I go there every year. I love the energy there, the people there. Everyone's just a free spirit. Nobody cares about anything. You can do whatever you want. And it's a beautiful place, beautiful people. So I wouldn't be surprised if I end up living there one day, or maybe having a holiday home there. Destination number 2, I would have to say Japan. Shout out to Japan. What a great trip that was. What a fascinating place. Very clean, very safe, fascinating people, culture, food. Everything was just wow. And to be honest, I can't wait to go back. Another destination I would say is South America. Now, I haven't narrowed it down to one country. I just think the whole continent is fascinating and interesting and fun. And it's worth seeing those countries whenever you get the chance to. I've seen a couple. I've been to Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. And I need to go and see the rest. So that is on my list of places. Next question. What actually makes me happy? The older I have become, I've come to the realization that it's the simple things in life that make me happy. For example, waking up in the morning, going outside, having a beautiful coffee, whether it's an iced Americano or a 10 out of 10 cappuccino, and sitting outside as the sun is basking on my face and just people watching, reflecting, pondering. That makes me smile every single day. Another thing, simple as well, is just driving around, ideally in a convertible with the top down, with the sun out, blasting my tunes. That makes me very happy. Of course, the better the car, the happier I probably will be, up to a certain point. For example, if I was to upgrade the Jaguar to a Lamborghini or Ferrari, I think I would be like marginally happier, not a huge amount. So another thing that keeps me happy. Also, something that keeps me happy is doing something that's challenging and difficult. So it's funny because whenever there is something that is coming up that is particularly difficult or challenging, or something I don't want to do, but I know is something that needs to be done, I am probably not happy. I'm probably a little bit anxious, stressed out, and like fired up. However, once I've done it and I've overcome that discomfort or the feeling of avoidance, whatever it is, I feel massively accomplished after I've done it. So whether it be a short-term thing, whether it's like a horrible leg workout, or whether it's a long-term business venture where I've been wanting to hit my targets, or whether it's just trying to solve a problem that seems to be unsolvable, doing difficult things, overcoming obstacles, makes me feel absolutely amazing after I've done it. Also, exploring new places, traveling, that always makes me happy. Usually when I'm by myself, I've found out, I could just go fly somewhere. It could be a completely new place or a place I've been before, and just going around on a mission by myself feels absolutely amazing sometimes. So, a couple of things for sure that make me happy. When do I plan on becoming a father? Well, the funny thing is, I'm actually already a father. I have 4 kids. I don't know where they are. No, I'm only kidding. I don't have any kids, but I always say this, in 2 years, I've been saying this for the past few years, that I'll be having kids in 2 years. Still 2 years away, but eventually, yes. I don't know if there is a perfect time. I think the good thing about being a guy is you can kind of do it at a later age. I think the question just comes down to finding the right person to have kids with. maybe I've found them already. Or maybe I'm still searching for them. Who knows? I know, you don't. It's a secret. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Business and personal life. Well, where will we be in 5 years' time? I will be 39 years old. Wow. 39 years old. Well, going back to the previous question, hopefully at that point I have some kids. I don't actually have 5-year plans because far too much changes in a 5-year period for me to have originally stuck with whatever plan that I'd set out for myself. For example, me moving to Dubai, I did that in 2019, end of 2019. I didn't actually plan on going to Dubai for the whole first half of the year. It was something that I kind of just decided to do a couple months beforehand, and then I just did it. So that was obviously massively life-changing, but something which I hadn't really planned for. In a couple of years' time, who knows? Maybe Dubai just gets really bad for whatever reason. Maybe Saudi is the place to be. Maybe I pick up all my stuff and go to Saudi. Who knows? I would say I plan maybe a year in advance. And one thing I always try and do is to never repeat the same year that I've had. Something has to be different or elevated. Unless I'm having an unbelievable year, I don't mind repeating that same year, which has kind of been the case the past couple of years. But usually, particularly when I was living in London, I said to myself, what's going to happen in the next year if I stay here? And I was like, exactly the same as what's happened this year. And that made me very depressed. Business-wise, I don't know. I just hope to be in an even better situation financially. Maybe started up some new companies, invested in some, or just scaled whatever it is that I have at the moment. I just like to see continued progress. Next question. How do I get over a breakup? It's really screwing me right now. Do you know what? I have been contemplating making a video specifically addressing this point because a lot of people ask me about it, and it's something which I have gone through more than once. And boy, it sucked. But I think it's an experience and a passage that all men have to go through, maybe women as well, but especially men. Makes you tough, makes you a little bit colder. I think you need to be a little bit colder, but that's my opinion. Probably not the right opinion. First thing to do is see relationships as chapters. So you have just finished a chapter of your life. Now you move on. You look back, you appreciate what you had, the experiences that you had, the good times you had together, what you learned from it. But it's over, and that's fine because you're about to start a new chapter. And hey, there's going to be plenty of amazing chapters in your life. And even when I think about the relationships which haven't worked out, or maybe they didn't end that well, something better always comes along. Almost always. Even when there's times where I've thought, oh, maybe I'm not going to find someone who's as good as her. I have. And guess what? If you continue to focus on yourself and level up, it just becomes easier finding other women who are even better than your previous partner. So that means you have to focus working on yourself. Use that negative energy and state of depression to go to the gym and get yourself into the best physical condition you've ever been in. It's the first thing I would do. Second thing, start working on yourself. Aside from your physique, your career, okay? Start stacking your money up, focusing on building your career and taking it to the next level. I would also focus on spending quality time with your friends because your friends will be a great distraction. Usually whenever you have a breakup, the worst part is when you're alone in bed thinking. So ideally you want to be so busy and distracted and focused with your own shit and your own work and your business that you just pass out. And then I would gradually ease yourself into just dating other girls. I know you're probably not emotionally ready to date other women, but you want to practice talking to other girls. Because I remember when I broke up with my ex, which was the most difficult one back in 2016, I've been with her for 2 years and I was absolutely terrible at talking to girls. I completely forgotten how to do it. I was a good boy. I was a proper, loyal, good boy. Wasn't talking to any other girls. So I literally ended that relationship and I had there was no conversations that I could pick up because I just hadn't been talking to any girls. So I had to like start from scratch. And my game was terrible. It was absolutely weak. But I practiced and then I got myself back in the game. So, next question. Advice on how to deal with outgrowing your friends. So this will be an inevitability if you are leveling up, particularly if you've come from maybe a small town or village. You don't have to completely sack them off and never see them again. But what I would do and what I have done is you just spend a little less time with them. So maybe it depends what they like to do. If you want to go out with them, go out with them. If you want to go play sport with them, play sport with them, do that. But just limit how much time you spend with them. And I think eventually they'll probably get the picture and just stop asking you to hang out with them. In which case, that's fine. It's just a part of life. But then the next obstacle comes to how do you find your people? How do you find your tribe? The people like you that you want to be surrounding yourself with. And that can be quite difficult depending upon where you're located and what it is that you do. I would say one thing that can massively help is to relocate to somewhere where there's a lot going on and a lot of people there. Particularly if you are the type of person that is an aspiring entrepreneur, then go to places where there are also other aspiring entrepreneurs, because there's going to be loads of the guys who are in the same situation as you. Dubai, for an example, is a great place for that, but there's lots of other cities like Dubai where you can also do that. Okay, it's not just Dubai, which is the only place for like entrepreneurs to go to. Loads of other places you can go to. You can try to network with people on social media. You can even buy your way into these private communities and what do you call them? Like these secret members clubs, which will obviously vary in price depending upon the caliber of people inside of the group. But that can be a quick way to get yourself access to other people who are on their shit and also want to hang out with other people. And then you can also go and get yourself in physical locations to networking events or things which are just going on. It really just becomes more of a challenge if you're naturally an introverted person, which I feel like I tend to be. My advice would be to go with somebody who's extroverted so they can be the person that breaks the ice, and then you can just follow on from there. And this is something which I had to do. I just had to become a little bit more comfortable with being alone. So I spent more time alone, and I actually would listen to podcasts, audiobooks, and I would see them as my friends. They were my mentors. You know, you could kind of listen to a 3-hour podcast and feel like you were in the room with those people. So that can be another thing that can help. Next question. How does one successfully complete monk mode without the distractions of girls, social media, etc.? I need to knuckle in and become successful. Well, first of all, I don't think you need to go full on monk mode. I mean, that is like the absolute extreme end of the spectrum. I have never done it. I don't think it's something I would really want to do just because of the sheer extreme nature of it. But there's certainly things you can be doing to just eliminate distractions, particularly social media, girls, and maybe going out and partying. So fairly straightforward with the social media. I think one of the best things you can do is either log yourself out or get an app like Opal and set yourself limitations on when you can access those apps. I got it recently after doing the podcast with Ali Abdal, and that's actually been quite a big game changer. More so for me, just not going on social media at night, which is terrible for my sleep. Secondly, with women, I would just say allocate certain periods of time during the week when you do socialize with women, and just don't overdo it. You know, it's very easy, especially for me when I first came to Dubai. You know, there was lots of offers, lots of beautiful women here. You know, I could get very distracted and carried away and go, oh, let's go to a beach club. You spend all day at a beach club, then you go for dinner, and then before you know it, the whole day has just been written off and you've done nothing. This woman has just sucked all of your time away from you. It may have been good, but you can't really afford to do that. I could do that every day if I wanted to, but I would get nothing done. So I have time in the week where I do that thing. And I think it is important for you to do. As I said before, that's one of the ways that I kind of unwind and manage my stress. I think if I was to go completely celibate and not talk to women, I don't think I'd be very happy. Maybe I'd turn into an absolute machine. Who knows? But I don't want to do that right now. I would also say look at what you spend a lot of your time doing, or what do you spend most of your time doing. Okay, there's probably hours in your day where you're just faffing around and not really doing anything of importance, or time that is wasted. So try and eradicate wasted time and turn that into productive time. And then all of a sudden you'll have enough time to knuckle down and become successful. Next question. What have been the most pivotal moments / experiences in your life? And from them, what have been the biggest lessons or regrets? Whew, there's a few. So we'll start off with one. I think my experience working at Hollister was when I was 21. So I was there for about a year and a half working as a assistant manager, which, although I was quite happy at the time to just have a normal job and a paycheck, I learned very quickly what it was that I didn't want to do with my life. I didn't like having a boss. I didn't like being told what to do. I didn't like being stuck indoors. I didn't like having any creative freedom. I didn't like the fact that no matter what, my paycheck would always remain the same. So there was a lot of things which I understood that I didn't like and didn't want out of a career. Next one was getting over the breakup, or getting over, there's 2 breakups, which I remember stick out. It's not really relating to business, but more of a personal one. I think they just turned me into a bit of a savage and like forced me to level up. And I think I got a little bit obsessed with turning myself into the man that they would forever regret leaving. Sounds quite evil. But boy, did I do that. Next one was leaving Newcastle and moving to London. I knew that London was the place that I wanted to go to because it was like the place to be in the UK for networking and opportunities. But for me, it was quite difficult because I had no experience of living alone. And it was the first time that I'd actually moved, first of all, somewhere where I didn't have any friends. And second of all, where I moved into my own apartment and I didn't live with anybody. So prior to that, when I'd been at university and at Newcastle, I'd lived with like 5 guys. And then 2-3 years prior to that, I'd been living with 2 other people. One of them was my best friend. So it was a big shock for me to just be by myself a lot of the time, which I don't think I handled very well. I should have forced myself to go out and meet people and socialize a bit more, but I didn't. So that was something which was a little bit of an issue. But also, I think doing that was a big confidence booster for me, because I, for the first time, was fully by myself, whereas beforehand I'd had a gym, I had a business partner, and I had never really had the confidence thinking that I could do everything myself. You know, a lot of the tasks and operations I would let my business partner do, and I just thought that I wouldn't be able to do it if I was by myself. And then when I went to London, I did everything by myself, and I absolutely flourished, and I had full confidence knowing that actually doing everything my way and by myself is the way to go. So that gave me a hell of a lot of confidence. And then I guess leaving London and moving to Dubai, that was also a big shift for me for career and personal life. Again, moving somewhere, didn't know anyone. Got to think in 2019, it was quite a different place. There was far fewer people here from the UK at least. So I remember coming here just before New Year's Eve, and I didn't really have anybody to hang out with. And I could have brought a girl with me for like at least 1 week, so I was entertained. But I was like, nah, this is something I need to do by myself. So I was literally by myself. And I remember on New Year's Eve, I didn't have anybody to hang out with. So I watched the fireworks from my balcony alone. That was quite depressing. But I guess it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. But yeah, look where I am now. And it's been a very good move for me. Met a lot of people. And it's just given me confidence knowing that wherever I go in the world, I'll be all right. I will be good. Next category, we're going to go into fitness and bodybuilding. This is something which apparently I know quite a bit about. First question is training 4 days, maximum of 5 days due to work, is it optimal to build mass with sufficient calorie and protein intake? Yes, it is. I think a lot of people overestimate how many times they need to go to the gym to actually build a decent physique. 4 times a week is really pretty damn good. Assuming that you are training hard and doing exactly what you need to do inside of the gym, that's great. And if anything, you could argue it's better than going to the gym 6 times a week, maybe 5 times a week, because you're allowing yourself to properly rest in between those sessions. Your performance is going to be better when you're doing the sessions themselves. I think 6 sessions, 7 sessions a week is over the top, unnecessary. 4 to 5 is good going. Maybe that 5th session might deliver some additional benefits and results, but the goal which you have in mind certainly can be attainable with 4 sessions per week, assuming that you're doing this every single week. What does Mike Thurston's current workout split look like and why? Monday's chest, Tuesday's chest, and then Wednesday's chest. Thursday, chest. No. Let's be serious for a minute, hey? My current split is actually the 5x5, which came out on the app, the Thirst app, a couple of weeks ago. The reason I'm doing 5x5 is just because I want to do something a little bit different for a change, because I've been doing hypertrophy focused training for the past 17 years, so maybe I should change it up a bit. Also, it's quite depressing how my bench and squat hasn't really changed over the past decade, so it'd be interesting to actually work on that a little bit and see what we can do. So I'm doing that with a little bit of hypertrophy sprinkled on top of it, because I do think if I was just to solely focus on 5x5, I may actually lose a little bit of size, but we will have to wait and see. Next question, how was your training and nutrition when you first started, and when did you start to see a big noticeable difference and start to get compliments? Was it years or months in? I think realistically, at least from my point of view, when I started to notice difference, it was maybe 8 or 10 months in. I started properly going to the gym regularly at an actual gym when I went to Newcastle University in 2008. So 2008, this was September. And I remember at the end of that first year at university, I think maybe we were June, July, I remember looking in the mirror. It was actually a window reflection. And I noticed I was wearing a long sleeve white top and my traps were starting to pop through and my triceps were popping out. And I was like, hey, things are actually like seriously changing now. I think my progress would have been a hell of a lot faster if I wasn't getting absolutely off my nut nearly every day. Alcohol is probably one of the worst things that you can consume if you're trying to keep testosterone high and build muscle. But it was a very different world back then. I think consuming alcohol was certainly a lot more normal back in 2008. And every single person at university was getting smashed. And I went to Newcastle. I mean, come on, everyone in Newcastle gets on it. So I also got on it. And then after that, there was a little bit of a plateau, probably the weight. I remember in my 3rd year of training, I'd just been stuck at like 87 kilograms and it wouldn't shift. And then when I finished university and started my career as a personal trainer, I started learning more about nutrition. I realized I just was not eating enough and my macros were a mess. So the moment I optimized my macros and stopped drinking, my physique went crazy. So yeah, the first, just for people in general, assuming you're doing everything that you should be doing, being consistent with training, eating, not drinking, sleeping, etc., you'll see the most progress in the first year. The 2nd and 3rd year, again, you'll see a hell of a lot of progress. And then that rate of progress and weight gain in terms of muscle mass will taper off 4th, 5th, 6th year onwards. It does start to not necessarily plateau, but it levels out. So yeah, first 3 years will make a big difference. Next question. For a woman training to lose weight and tone, would you add more weight, reps, or sets? So the physical anatomy of a female is very similar to a male. You have the same muscles. So the only thing that I would change is exercise selection. I wouldn't really change the reps and sets. You could argue maybe women can't tolerate as much volume as men. Obviously, their testosterone production testosterone production is lower, so their recovery, so the rate of recovery is going to be a little bit slower. So I would want a woman to rest a little bit more, and I would also probably manipulate their training around the menstrual cycle. I'm not a master, or should I say master? I'm not an expert at this. There's some people who literally dedicate their whole career to the menstrual cycle and how to eat and train around it. So there's probably women that you should follow who are experts on that, but there's certain adaptations and changes you should make based on that. But yeah, everything's pretty much the same. I have programs on my app, the Thirst app. 3 of them are really good. Full body sculptor, sculpt and tone, glorious glutes. I built them myself. They're, in a sense, quite similar in terms of the structure, but there's just the exercise selection, which is different. There's a lot of emphasis on lower body and glutes, and obviously less emphasis on biceps, triceps, traps, and chest. There is a little bit of training, because obviously you do want to be strong. You want to have a strong pushing and pulling ability. You just probably are not that bothered about having massive shoulders. So it's all about developing a strong physique, a functional physique, but building a huge bunda. That's the absolute priority, isn't it? Am I right, ladies? Am I right? That's what I would do if I was a woman. I would train my ass loads. Don't underestimate the power of a beautiful bum. Anyway, moving on. How do you handle setbacks or injuries that affect your ability to train? I get asked this question a lot, and it's funny because I see how an injury, it's not even that bad of an injury. People are like, well, that's me out of the game. I guess I'm going to have a 4-week rest from the gym and any activity whatsoever. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anytime I've had an injury, and I've had my fair share, touch wood, not broken anything, but boy, oh boy, I've had some lower back problems, elbow problems, and a nasty shoulder problem in 2018. I shared this story before. Swinging around like an absolute idiot on the rings in Santa Monica, and I must have twisted something in my rotator cuff, but basically I couldn't even lift my arm the next day, and for the remainder of the year, couldn't press, bench press, shoulder press, nowhere near to my usual level of intensity. And basically the shoulder and chest training was just not great at all. But did I let that be an excuse for me not to go to the gym? No, I can smash my legs and train everything else that I could. Mark my words, if I ever got an injury, even if it was a bad injury where I couldn't walk, I would be wheeling myself into the gym, or I'd be hobbling myself to the gym on crutches and doing everything I could with my upper body to still stay jacked. Same thing if I literally couldn't move my upper body or I lost an arm, I would still be going to the gym and doing everything that I can to still be jacked. I would just find my way around it. I would choose exercises that I could still do. Even if you have a really bad back, there's loads of stuff you can do where your back is supported. You can just train your body. So I'm not a fan of that excuse unless you are severely ill or you're paralyzed. I wouldn't let that be an excuse to not go to the gym. But guys, listen to your doctor. Listen to what the doctor has said. There has been one time where I did not go for a week. And that's because I had a hair transplant. Follicles from the back of my head and side of my head were brought to the front of my head and the crown. And the doctor said, you should not go to the gym for at least 10 days. And I was like, but doctor, please let me go. And he said, no, could jeopardize the whole effectiveness of the transplant. So I didn't go. I don't know if the reason behind that was because he didn't want me to strain so much the follicles popped out of my head, or if it was the chance of me sweating to the point that it may potentially infect the wounds. Probably a combination of both. So I listened to him. I took 7 days off. It wasn't 10, I took 7 days off. And it was fine. Although 3 weeks later, I did come to Dubai and jump out of a plane, which probably wasn't great for the follicles, but apparently they stayed in. Next question. How do you juggle your own workouts with creating fitness content for socials? I tell you what, I do not enjoy training and filming at the same time. I'm in my absolute element when I'm training alone, when I'm listening to my music and I'm in my own little world. The moment that cameras get involved, it's just a distraction. But it's something that needs to be done sometimes. So recently I did a video on YouTube. It was just going through the 5x5 split. That was okay because there was, as a strength training program, you get quite a lot of rest in between the sets. So that was fine. So I could just yap on about stuff. But usually if it's like an intense session where I need to be in the zone, I don't really like to talk. And you shouldn't really spend too much time talking. You should be just recovering and then getting yourself ready for the next set. So what I tend to do is I do my session separate. And then whenever I need to film stuff for socials, whether it's a YouTube video or particularly a lot of short form content, which goes out on TikTok and my other coaching page, Mike Thurston Coaching, I will do that separately and just, maybe I get a little bit of a pump on and I just film content for that. Next question. Top 5 tips for starting a personal training business in 2024. Now, I would need to know what type of business you're trying to build here. Is it you just getting more clients and being a fully booked personal trainer, or are you trying to be an online trainer, or are you trying to build a personal training business with other coaches working underneath you? I don't know. Let's just assume you want to be a successful, fully booked online coach. I guess the first thing you would need to do is build your social media presence. Particularly if you want demand for products or services online, then you need to have a presence online. It's something I learned about my career on YouTube. The moment I started pumping out the YouTube videos, guess what? All of a sudden, the demand for my services went up a lot. So that's very important. For those people who don't have a clue about social media or personal branding, I've actually put together a course called the Digital Playbook, which literally tells you everything that you need to do. And I share with everybody my journey and how I went from being a nervous, weird little guy who hated talking to the camera to me being chief yapper on a podcast. Everything is shared in there. It's not necessarily focused for people who want to go into the fitness career. It's literally people who just want to do something they enjoy doing. They just want to create content and build a personal brand and monetize that audience. So I'd recommend you check it out. I think it's also important, if you are getting into the fitness and coaching industry, you have to talk the talk and walk the walk. Okay, so you got to look the part. You've also got to talk the part. So looking good is great, but you've also got to back that physique up with knowledge and experience. And that's why I really don't like people who become online coaches and they've never trained people in person, because that is a huge part when it comes to coaching people. You are automatically just saying, I'm a coach, yet you have no experience of coaching or working with people. And now you're offering your services for an absurd amount of money, considering you don't really have a fucking clue what it is that you're doing. So I'd always recommend getting some experience in the field, just coaching people, developing your people skills, understanding what it is that people struggle with, how to motivate people, and what are the mistakes that they're always making, because that is a huge one. It's probably one of the reasons why my YouTube had so much success in the early days, because I'd been a personal trainer for more than 3 years. So it was like I knew what I was talking about, and I was talking to the camera like I was talking to my client. Like I knew what everybody was struggling with, and I gave the solution. And I think another big thing as well is just showing that you can get results. I know quite a lot of people these days fake these client testimonials and transformations, but it does work. You've got to show that you're actually helping people to get in shape, because if you can't do that, then why should people work with you? So gain people's trust and show them that you can actually get them results. Next question. What is the best way for me to maintain whilst on vacation? I have limited access to gyms for around 2 to 3 weeks. Interesting. I really don't know if there's many places and destinations that you would go to in today's age where there isn't really a gym nearby. I mean, surely there has to be something nearby. Even when I was in Capri on this island, there was still a little gym there. It was the smallest, sweatiest, most horrible gym ever, but it was a gym. So first of all, wherever you're going, scout out the area and just see if there is a gym of some sort, because I'm sure there is, unless you're in the Amazon rainforest. then I would understand. But first of all, do that. Second of all, I always say to people, go at least twice. You can go to the gym twice per week. Going 3 times per week is good going. Just doing 3 full body sessions is a great way for you to obviously burn calories, but just preserve the muscle mass. It can start to disintegrate. So people say up to, after 2 weeks of not training, but I feel like it's sooner than that. I think if you are not providing that stress and stimulus to your body, particularly if you have a lot of muscle, your body's just gonna be like, well, we don't need this anymore, so let's just get rid of it. So I would really try and prioritize finding a gym. If not, do some body weight routines. I've actually got these on my app in the bands and body weight section. So again, these are just full body workouts where you're using your body weight to train yourself, doing dips, push-ups, press-up variations, shoulder press variations, single leg exercises, things like that. They're not the best, but it's better than nothing, and you can just do them at home. It only takes 45 minutes an hour. And obviously on top of that, keeping protein intake high, that can be an issue sometimes if you're limited with how often you can eat or the access to the quality of food. So maybe take some things with you, or doing a supermarket shop is always good. Like just stocking up on some canned fish. I always do that. Canned fish, mackerel, maybe some eggs, and then sometimes I just get salmon fillets and I would just whack them in the oven, and that would be like one of my meals. But of course, I don't know what this trip of yours is going to consist of, so maybe you can't do that. And then on top of that, just walking as much as possible. I mean, sometimes when I've gone on vacation, I've just increased my step count. It's been great. I've actually got leaner because I've just walked so much. And of course, I keep up with my training. So, yeah. You'll be able to do it. Be able to do it. When are you going to open your own gym? Why haven't you done so already? I already have. God, I did this 2013. So 2013, 14, 15, 16, I had my own gym in Newcastle upon Tyne. It was a personal training studio, but it was a big one. It wasn't a public gym, but I've been there, done that. And I'll tell you what, many things in life that you think would be amazing and would be a dream of yours to either have or do, own, whatever it might be, a lot of those things tend to be an anticlimax, and having the gym was an anticlimax. I had a big smile on my face for probably a month afterwards, and then got very accustomed to it, and then very shortly after that, it just became a massive pain in the ass, to be honest. Firstly, because that's just living there all the time, and you kind of need to be there all the time if it is your own gym, because you need to make sure that it's operating the way that it should be operating, unless you somehow manage to hire an amazing team that just absolutely kill it. And then secondly, I think I just came to the realization that I guess it depends, why do you want your own gym? Like, I remember when I had my own gym and it was full of people training there, I hated it because I wanted everyone to leave so I could just train there by myself, blast my music and take my top off, which is obviously not very friendly for other gym goers to be witnessing when I'm topless and raging around. So that was annoying. And then second of all, it's just like it costs money. Like to open one gym, it's not the best business model. You know, there's far better ways to make money that are going to be a hell of a lot less stress and be a hell of a lot less expensive. For me to open my ideal gym, like I'm talking, I've seen so many gyms now, hundreds of gyms around the world. Like I may potentially open a gym, like my dream gym in my dream location, but it's not going to be something that's going to be like massively profitable. If anything, I'll probably lose money because I will cap how many people can go and train there, because if too many people train there, it will annoy me. So it would be more like a gym experience with the craziest interior design, and for sure it would cost a hell of a lot of money. But I would really need to be in a situation where like I don't actually care about losing money. You know how people go and buy yachts? People that buy yachts are the type of people that can afford to just throw money away. That's like the way I see the gym. Or if I do multiple of them, I'm going to open it because I can literally just afford to open a gym. I don't care if it loses money. I think the moment I go in to open a gym and like there's a necessity for it to be profitable, I think it will stress me out. and it will be annoying, and I'll have to do things that I don't want to do so it makes money. So that is my answer. One day when I've got enough cash to waste, or maybe the right investor, and I mean, imagine the time and the effort that I'm going to put into this, just like picking out like the machines, the interior, like it'd take up a huge chunk of my life just designing this. So I've got other more pressing things to do at the moment. Last one on the fitness. Which bodybuilders did you look up to when you first started in the gym? I remember I used to go on, was it the Simply Shredded website? This was before YouTube, man. This was like back in the day when it was only Instagram and blogs. I remember seeing pictures of Simeon Pandera thinking, whoa, that was a crazy physique. And also Lazar Angelov. I think Lazar Angelov was like the most aesthetic thing I had ever seen at the time when I was in my very early 20s. So he was probably the first person where I was like, yeah, that's a sick physique. I have a question for you guys. Do you take supplements? And if you do you really know what supplements you should be taking? You see, this is a problem I had for years. I would walk into a supplement store, I would buy loads of random bottles of supplements and just pop pills every day, hoping for the best. But in reality, I had no idea whether or not I should be consuming these supplements. That is where Bionic came into the picture and solved that problem. You see, I've been working with Bionic for the past couple of years, and since 2021, I've been getting my blood work done with them every 3 to 4 months. And based on that blood work, they send it off to get analyzed, and then they put together a very specific customized formula for me, which will last me for 3 to 4 months until I get my next blood work done. And honestly, it's been an absolute game changer for me. They also offer another product called Bionic Go, where all you need to do is go onto the website, fill in questionnaire, and then based on that questionnaire, they can give you your customized supplements. So if that sounds like something that would be of interest, which I highly recommend, go onto the website, bionic.com, and you can use the link in my description to get a nice little discount on your first order. The next section, we're going to move on to entrepreneurial advice. So this question, before you made the leap from Newcastle to London, how much detailed planning had you done? How long had you been ruminating on it, and how had you envisioned that move playing out? And then how much did the reality match what you had envisioned? That's a big question, but it's a good one though. Well, first of all, this was in 2016. So I was growing increasingly unhappy with this business partnership that I was in. It's like being in a unhappy marriage. You kind of locked into it. With contracts, money, things like that, you can't just like get out of it. You can't just be like, oh, well, I don't like this anymore, so I'm going to take my half and leave. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. But it got to the point where I was so unhappy and we were having so many arguments that I was just like, look, I don't even care if I just walk away from this and you keep my half. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's ultimately what I did. It was like a steadily brewing for a year, I would say. Just a combination of so many different things, and I think I just wanted to be free, and I wanted to travel and do my own thing, and I just didn't want to work with this guy anymore. So I think it all really happened literally in the space of 2 or 3 months. I think maybe 2 months before the leave, I remember speaking to my dad about it, trying to get his advice, and he was just saying, do what makes you happy. And I just thought, yeah, well, I mean, walking away from this business, I just couldn't see myself still being in Newcastle, because seeing my friends there and just seeing, like, driving past the gym, like knowing that it was like my gym, like I just knew I had to get out of the place and start from fresh. So obviously, where else am I going to go? You know, I want to go to where the action is, where the money is. I want to go to London. But at that point, I couldn't afford to. So I've told this story quite a few times before. Left everything, packed up my stuff, went back to Leeds, stayed in my family house with my dad and my brother for about 1 month. In this month, I just doubled down on creating content, and I actually just built a website where I could offer my services, which was online coaching and building like customized programs. And then once I'd done that, I just put it on sale and then started to get a bit of money, which was quite good. But it wasn't enough money for me to actually move to London and move into the apartment that I wanted to move into, because I knew that I really wanted to go hard with YouTube, and I needed to have a place that was like presentable, that looked like modern and bright. And I chose this apartment in Kingston, which had this white kitchen, living room. It was really bright, had a balcony. It was like, at the time, like amazing for me. but I couldn't afford to move there. I think it was like 1,500 a month, which was a huge step up from what I was paying in Newcastle, which was maybe like 350, 400 pound a month. So I think I could have just scraped by, but obviously the landlord was like, there's no guarantee of you being able to stay here for a year. And I need somebody who can do that. So I had to get my dad to be a guarantor. So I was like, Dad, please, can you just sign this and tell this guy that if for whatever reason I can't make the payments, you will make the payments. And obviously he was a bit like, well, you better friggin' make the payments. And I was like, trust me, I will. That was always one thing. Like I hated the idea of disappointing my dad. The idea of me having to go and ask him for money was probably the thing that made me the most scared. Like that was just the last thing that I wanted. So yeah, went to London and just grinded. And as I mentioned before, it didn't really. I don't know what I expected. I think financially, everything went better than I could have imagined. But it was a social shock because all of a sudden, I'd been a personal trainer who was in a gym all day talking to clients and like being with my co-workers and staff and being around my friends, particularly on the weekends. Now I was in London. I didn't know anybody. Now my job is very kind of isolated because I'm just creating content by myself, filming, editing by myself. I had some online clients, but it was just like remote conversations, which were never really the same as in-person conversations. So I was not really having any physical contact with anybody. This was the time when I had my long distance relationship, so I felt very isolated. That was a shock. So that was one thing that I didn't anticipate happening. And then the other thing which I didn't anticipate happening was just, it was a poor choice me moving to Kingston. I moved to Kingston because the only two people I knew was Ross Dixon and James Caan. You probably know who Ross Dixon is. He's quite big in fitness. And he lived near to Kingston. And we went training to the same gym, Physique Warehouse. So I was like, well, if I go there, then at least I know two people and I know a good gym. But Kingston's actually a bit of a trek to central London. So I didn't actually get to spend much time in central London as much as I would like. So I just ended up spending loads of time in Kingston, which is like, my income is coming in online. My job can be done anywhere in the world. So why the hell am I living in Kingston? Like, I could have literally gone anywhere. So if I'd gone back in time, I would not have gone to London, to be honest. I would have just traveled the world. I would have spent some time in Bali back when it was good and not completely saturated with tourists. Maybe I would have come to Dubai earlier. Maybe I would have spent some time in South America. I should have just traveled more and enjoyed living in different places around the world instead of being in frigging Kingston for 2 years. But hey, it is what it is. Next question. Would be super interested to know how you set goals and plan to achieve them. Do you set a few yearly goals or do you plan them all in advance? I think, to be honest, what I do is usually at the start of each year, I just write down a couple of big things which I want to do. And I've come to the understanding that I can't write down too much of a big list because if I try to do too many things, it just doesn't happen. You really just have to be like borderline a little bit obsessed with achieving like either one thing or like two things or three things, and then just do what needs to be done, set out a plan in order to achieve those things. I don't really do it month by month. It's more like a yearly thing. And I think as well, it's when it comes to goal setting, it's all well and good setting goals, but I think it's even better to set yourself deadlines. So I could write a list of goals and things which I think, oh yeah, it'd be really cool if I achieve this. But it's like not really enough sometimes to achieve those things. If you actually set yourself a deadline and be like, right, I have to have achieved this very specific thing by this specific date, then you're like, oh, okay, this is a little bit more serious. Like I need to get going. I need to get moving with this. So that's probably a better way to see it and approach it. And to be honest as well, I have written myself goals in the past because I like the idea of those goals, but really deep down, I've not cared enough about them. And I think that's quite important because if you don't really care about achieving a certain thing, then you're probably not going to do it. Like, for example, when it comes to physique, like I really care about having a good physique. So I do what needs to be done in order to maintain my physique and look good. Whereas if I didn't really care, then I probably wouldn't look that great. So the same thing goes with achieving certain goals or setting yourself deadlines. You have to really care about it. Otherwise, if it's not up there in your top things that you really want to do and care about, then it's probably just not going to get done. If you lost everything tomorrow whilst knowing what you know now, what would be your complete step-by-step plan for making it come back? Well, I guess it depends on what it is that I'm losing. If I lost all of my money and possessions, that would not be the end of the world because I would just very quickly be able to make money back. If I lost all my social media followers and my platforms, that is a little bit tricky because that is like one of the main lead generators where I get customers from. So that would be a little bit more inconvenient for sure. But I mean, the good thing is about building a personal brand is like having a strong personal brand is like the most valuable thing you can have, because no matter what it is that you lose, if the brand is still there, it's very easy and quick for you to build back the following or to build back the business because you have like the reputation. So what I would probably do is I think I would let's assume that I've lost my money and my social media following. The first thing I would do, let's assume I just lost my brand as well. Okay, so nobody knows who I am. First thing that I would do is I would just start aggressively building my social media profiles online. So I would not have much of a life at all. I would just be regurgitating content everywhere. So take over social media. And then I think the first thing to do would just be to offer my services. So I would offer digital services because I would need to get some money coming in so that I could pay for people who are churning out the content. So whether that be online coach, doing group coaching, making plans, just something which I'm just trading in my time for money. Okay. So I don't have to wait to build a product or pay for a load of money to build a product. It's like, boom, okay, I'm trading my time for your money. And then once it comes to the point where I've actually got good money coming in from trading my time, then I would look to try and scale that somehow and basically free up more of my time so I could just create more content and then actually start to build whatever it is that I would want to build. For example, like the app. So that's probably something which I would do. If we take it a step further and we assume that I lose my knowledge as well, and I literally go back to being my 21-year-old self, what would I tell that 21-year-old self? Again, I would just say get onto the social medias as soon as you can do. Of course, I'm probably at a point where I don't have nowhere near as much value to offer because I haven't become an experienced coach at that time. I don't know anything about fitness. I would just document my life and do funny things, just try and entertain people, just to at least build some sort of an audience. And then really just dig deep into developing certain skill sets. So one of them would be like how to transform your physique, become a coach, but also maybe learn about marketing and sales and then go from there. So for those people who are in their late teens, early 20s, skill development and building your confidence to speak on camera and social media platforms is very important, in my opinion. What amount of monthly income did you first feel like you were making a lot of money? And how many months and years did it take you after leaving Newcastle to get to that point? So I think for me, it was the point where I was making £10,000 a month. And at this point, I had like no overheads. So I was like, hey, this was after the gym. So this frigging gym wasn't eating up all my money. I was like, I literally only have to pay for my rent. And that is it. All the rest of this money is for me. It was a great feeling. Because at the time, I was still editing and filming all the videos by myself. And I think this was probably a point in my life where I was like the most stress-free. I think the moment when I stopped, this was a few years later after this, when I stopped doing personal training and I just brought out my app, I was getting monthly revenue coming in without it really taking up a huge amount of time. And I was also getting money from sponsorships and YouTube. So I was making like 40 to 50,000 pound a month and only had one overhead. And that was two. I had my London accommodation, which was a pretty swanky apartment, which was like £4,000 a month. And then I was just Louis Armstrong, who was my cameraman and editor. So in 2019, all I did was just travel the world and have fun. And I didn't have to worry about a thing, to be honest. It was a great year looking back on it. But going back to the question, how quickly did it take me to go to 10K a month? Literally, probably only 3 or 4 months after leaving Newcastle, because I was at such a point of desperation where I knew I needed to make money. And I think it was just like this disappointment in myself that I'd become a failure and taking this huge step back. I was determined to not be a failure. So I just cranked out loads of content at the time, and obviously built my website, offered my services, and then very quickly I had like loads of clients who wanted to work with me, and I was making over 10K a month. So very, very quickly done. I think even for people who don't have a huge following, you'll be surprised how much money you can earn from those followers, assuming that you actually have like a decent skill set and you can offer them a service that will help them with their problems. Next question. How has your life changed since moving to Dubai? It's terrible. Hate my life. Just can't wait to leave, to be honest. Only kidding. I would say I'm extremely happy with my lifestyle. So I've kind of designed like the dream life that I'd always wanted for myself. I think that's a lot of people ask me like, what am I most proud of? I'm kind of really proud of the fact that like I live the exact life that I want to live, because for so long I wasn't living that life, up until probably the age of 29, 30. So happy with that, you know, the apartment, living on the beach, the friendship group that I have, the climate, you know, everything is a blessing. I'm very happy. The freedom is like the freedom to do whatever it is that I want and go wherever I want is absolutely amazing. Like nobody tells me like, oh, you can't do that, you can't do this. I can literally do what I want. That's great. I would also say the friendship circle has changed, just because there's a lot of people out here who are very sort of hungry, driven, ambitious entrepreneurs. So it's very easy for me to meet like-minded people, and also because of the podcast and so on, I built up a solid network here. So I know a lot of people here in Dubai, so I don't feel lonely. I feel like, to be honest, that this is my home. And I think because this just, I mean, it always has been a bit of a hub for wealth. Over the past couple of years, more than ever, like millionaires from around the world are all flocking to Dubai, whether they're buying holiday homes or moving here permanently. There's so many wealthy people moving here. So it's quite humbling, because whenever you feel as though you're doing good and you're like, oh yeah, I'm making money now, like check me out. Oh, wait a second. All you have to do is look around outside and see that you are far away from the top dogs who are running the game. There's a lot of people here who are very successful, and you know, if you think you have a nice car, you think you're making loads of money, there's always someone here who's doing better than you. So some people would see that as maybe disheartening. I like it because it keeps me, as I said, humble, but also it's motivating to see that, wow, there's actually levels to this. You know, that people are really making a killing. Like, how are they doing it? Like, interesting. Let's have a conversation. Let's be friends. So yeah, that's life is good in Dubai right now. Since becoming popular on YouTube, how does money coming in matter over views and awareness for you? Do you feel more motivated by the social benefits or the business growth? Interesting. I think I made the decision quite a few. I think once I'd hit 1 million subscribers, things changed a little bit, because my goal was always like, oh, let's get 1 million subscribers. And I was doing things maybe I didn't necessarily want to do because I just knew that it would bring in views and subscribers. Now I make videos purely because I want to make a video. Either it excites me or I'm like, oh, I will enjoy filming this video. So I'm not necessarily doing it to get as many views as possible. I'm doing it to entertain myself, but also I guess I have a duty to entertain or educate the existing subscribers. So I think from this point forwards, I do want to go back and maybe increase the frequency at which I upload, because I think it's very hard to stay relevant, but to stay like really motivated to put content out when you've been doing it for so long. I mean, like, I started my first couple uploads back in 2016, so I've been doing it a long time, and like, you know, sometimes I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't want to make a vlog, like I don't want to make a video, but it's like you kind of have a duty to your subscribers, and I guess it is part of the business, because I guess that's one thing that I don't like, is that the success of my current businesses, which I've set up, it's related to the frequency and the presence that I have online with uploading content. So if I decide to not upload content, I think there was like a couple of weeks, maybe a month this summer where I just didn't upload any content on YouTube because I just didn't want to. I was just enjoying myself. But that does have a knock-on effect on how many people are going to subscribe to the app, how many people are going to buy the clothing, how many other people are going to like sign up to the digital playbook and things like that. So it is important for me to have a presence online and sort of be there, because if you're not there, then people are going to get bored and they'll be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go watch someone else. So I don't like how at the moment they're kind of related. Eventually I want to get to the point where I can separate the success of my businesses being down to how many views I get or how many people actually like me online. I don't like that. For business growth as well, if we're talking about money, I mean, I could have definitely monetized my audience a lot more. Could have done that. Could have really rinsed you guys. But I'm really against selling too much. I just don't like it. And I don't think anyone really likes it. I think people accept it if it's your own product or service that you put time and effort into building. People are like, okay, well, at least he's made it himself and it's providing value and helping people. It's always a lot trickier to do a promotion or sponsorship for another company or brand, because then people are like, well, this person is just doing it because they're getting paid. If, for example, I was to like promote something which I actually use, like Whoop or Bionic. Like Bionic, I've been taking Bionic since 2021. It kind of makes sense because, you know, regardless of whether or not I talk about it on social media, I'm still going to use it and consume it. Whereas if I promote something which makes absolutely no sense to me, my brand, and for you guys, you're just going to hate on me. But I could make well over 6 figures if I wanted to go down that route of promoting brands and doing collaborations. So there's a lot of money that has been left off the table because I don't want to go down that route. But at the same time, I have to still make money and promote these things to you guys in order for me to put out the content. It's not cheap having photographers and camera crew follow you around and put content like this out. So it's like a balance of needing to do both. Like I need to have this business mindset and treat it like a bit of a business. But at the end of the day, I really just enjoy putting content out there, which I enjoy to make and produce. So that was a good question. Good question. But I hope you guys appreciate that I don't fucking sell the shit out of things to you, because loads of people do that these days, particularly with podcasts. I mean, come on, realistically, I am not doing any silly advertisements for these weird brands on this podcast, even though I've had loads of people approach me and brands approach me. I don't. I promote Bionic because I use it and I actually have equity in the company. So I have a slice of this company. So of course I'm going to talk about it. And then obviously everything else to talk about is my own product or service, which I've built myself. Like, come on, put some respect on my name. I don't think you guys appreciate that. Do you want me to talk about AG1 every single second? No, I don't think you do. Next question. Number 1 advice for scaling an online business. I think this is quite interesting because if you've built a business online that's doing well and you've taken it from 0 to 10,000 a month, that's great. Okay, to take that from 10,000 to 100,000 a month, it's going to take a little bit more than whatever it was that took you to 0 to 10,000. Okay, maybe you will be able to do that by yourself. Maybe you won't. You're probably going to need to hire staff and start building a team. If you want to take it from 100,000 a month to $1 million a month, then that is like next level impressive shit. And you're probably going to need to speak to an expert who has experience when it comes to scaling businesses. So that's what I would do. I would pay to speak to or consult with somebody who has the experience and the knowledge, who will be able to help you scale, because you could try and read loads of books and do it yourself. You'll probably make loads of mistakes, but maybe you'll eventually get there. But you can fast track the process by actually speaking to someone who has been there and done it, even if it's the case where maybe they want a piece of equity. You know, if it just means that you have to give away a slice of the company for it to be a hell of a lot more valuable, then surely you'd want to do that. Next question, how do you build connections and network with high-value people? As I said before, relocate to where the action and the money is. That's going to help. Spend time in the places where they hang out. So a lot of private members clubs or these elite gyms, for example. There's a couple in Dubai where it's just literally full of really wealthy guys. So it's just like a really good place to network with other people who have money. Cigar lounges, places like that. And then I think two things, if you can provide value in some way, and also if you are a somebody, like you've done something, or maybe you have a bit of following, or you've got a bit of social status, then that will improve your chances of them actually wanting to hang out with you. So, for example, if you took away all my social media following and I was kind of left with what I have now, what value could I offer them? Well, maybe I could help them get in shape. Maybe they'd come up to me and be like, yo, you have great physique. Like, tell me, how do I get that physique? And I'll be like, hey, let me help you. I'll do it for free if you just talk to me and give me some advice. But I think a lot of the people now, they look at me, they know who I am. I built my social status up to the point where I sit today. I have my following, I have my audience. Then people are like, hey, he's got a voice, he's got an audience. I also have a product, I have a service. Like, I want this person to promote this product or service or talk about it. Or maybe I'll just come on their podcast and talk about my product and service. So that can help as well. So there's ways to do it. But you've got to put yourself out there and get yourself in the room where those other people are. Next question, when will I do another mastermind weekend? That's a good question. I was toying with the idea of doing it in potentially November, December. I think this one would be like for sure the best one to date, because now after the podcast and all the network which I've built, all these very successful business people, I can get them to guest speak. So it would be a question of lining up a great itinerary where I have these extraordinary speakers who could share their knowledge. Obviously, I'll share my knowledge as well, and then it would be less like the first Dubai Mastermind, where it was more of an experience thing. This would be more of okay, let's learn as much as possible. Network with like the best people you can network with, and get a lot of value from some of the best people in the game. So the only downside is it takes quite a lot of planning and like mental energy. Like I remember that the past two which I've done, so full on, because all these people who have come to the mastermind, they want to speak to me, and that's like 8, 10, 12 people that I'm with all weekend that are literally asking me questions, want advice, want to be my friend, whatever it might be. So it's like extremely full on. So it's just whether or not like I'm ready to do that again. But I think for sure I would like to do it, particularly for all the people who have signed up to the digital playbook. Like now there's a lot of people in that community who like they want to like meet up with each other, meet up with me. So maybe I'll do a few. Maybe I'll do like one big mastermind, but I'll do a few smaller meetups for people in the VIP Thirst training group, and also for the people in the digital playbook. So let's see. Dubai is a great place to have masterminds and meetups. Next question. I have a lot going on and I struggle to keep organized. What tips do you have on creating a winning routine or structure for your day? Well, I am not the man to ask for that, because I'm absolutely useless when it comes to organization, because I'm just like, I don't care. I'm like way too chill. And that's been a weakness of mine. And I've come to the realization that that is a problem, which I have. So I hired an assistant. So my assistant helps me with organizing everything and taking care of things I don't really want to do, and making sure that I do the things which I've said need to be done. So she's been great. Thanks, Bella. Next question. Best advice for selling digital products online. What are your 3 best lessons? I think first of all, make a truly great product. I think if your digital product is not that good, then it's just going to be fucking hard trying to sell it. So before you sell it, make sure that it's really, really good. And the better it is, it's kind of easier to sell. Second of all, become a content creating master. Now, whether that be you creating content to generate leads for this digital product, or you building a team of people to help you with creating content for it, whichever one you need to do, I think creating content is the way forward for generating leads. You can also potentially run ads. Like I debated whether to have this as number 3. Like I'm not actually like the guy to ask when it comes to running ads, but if you have the right advertising structure and place, or you create this like amazing piece of content and you just push it out to everyone as an ad, that can be a great way for generating sales. Now we're going to move on to podcast-related questions and social media. So, what is the goal of the podcast? I love all the episodes. Mike, who's someone you would like to have on your podcast from any industry? So, I guess, first of all, the podcast is great for me because it gives me an opportunity to meet people who I've always wanted to meet. And it's highly unlikely that I'll probably ever get to meet these people unless I have a platform like this, a big podcast, or maybe, it's big, soon to be big, where it will be the highest chance of me actually getting to sit down with this person and talk to them for like an hour and a half. Like, that makes me so happy to speak to people who I genuinely admire and respect. So this is my best chance of doing that. Second of all, it's amazing for building my confidence, my conversational skills, my personal brand, because I'm not just seen as a fitness guy or YouTuber anymore, and my network. Like, wow, the network has massively improved over the past 2 years because of when I have a guest, particularly when I have a guest come to see me in person and I meet them physically. Like, that's like a contact who I've made, maybe a friend that I've made. So that's amazing. And then in terms of people who I'd want to have on my podcast, like I have a list. There's a big list. I won't say any specific just yet, but the people who excite me the most are like either sports people, artists, or actors. You know, and it helps if it's the type of person that hasn't really done many podcasts, then I want them to come on even more. Next question. How did the podcast start and how do you manage your team along with everything else for Thirst? Well, that's a broad question when it comes to Thirst overall. So let's just stick with the podcast. Let's see. I believe I got the hunger for doing it after I did a podcast with Chris Williamson back in 2020. End of 2020, Chris came here with his Modern Wisdom podcast. He asked me to come on. And I remember after doing it, I was like, that was great. Like, that was so good, just like having a conversation with my friend. I would like to do that. But of course, I didn't. Nothing came about it. I procrastinated for a couple of years thinking it was something I wanted to do, but I just didn't feel like I was ready. I was waiting for something. And I think after a particular year in, I was a summer in Ibiza, I was like, right, okay, I'm just fucking wasting my life. Like, pull your finger out, start doing something useful. Let's get this podcast started. Yes, you're scared, you're nervous because you don't like know that much about interviewing. You've never really done a podcast before. So I was putting it off because of that kind of fear. It was a lot of procrastination until I was just like, right, I need to do it. The only thing that I needed was somebody just to do the technical side of things. So I was looking for a podcast guy, sound engineer. It turns out the absolute perfect guy for the job had already DM'd me for years asking if he could have a job. But he was wording it in a slightly different way. He was asking if he could produce or make music for my YouTube videos. I was like, I don't care about that. But then I remember replying to him one day and being like, do you know anything about podcasts? And he was like, well, I got a degree in sound engineering. I was like, right, you're coming to Dubai. You're helping me set up this podcast. Let's fucking do it. So I flew him out to Dubai. We bought all the equipment. And then the rest was history. So, yeah, it was long overdue, but something which, at least I believe when it comes to podcasting, like, I'm glad I didn't start any sooner. If I had done it in my 20s, I would have said some stupid stuff. There's a lot of life which I believe you need to experience before you can kind of sit down and talk about it or ask the right questions. So yeah, after hitting 30, I feel like I was in a lot more mature and in a position where I could do something like this. So yeah. How am I managing it? Well, I'm hiring people to ensure that it is just run properly. So Jasper, he takes care of a lot of stuff, but I've also got the team. Chris helps me film. He also does the YouTube. Elvis is the short form. We've also got a thumbnail guy and a intro guy, because I don't like doing intros. So I just get this guy to make some cool intros for the video. And then we've also got guest bookers involved now. I'll talk more about that later if the right question comes. What's the best advice you've got from all your podcasts? I don't think there is a single piece of advice or quote which like massively stands out to me. There's just been far too much value which has been conversed. And it's actually pretty difficult to absorb all of it. Like, it's like really full on. I think a lot of people don't really understand that whenever you're doing a podcast, like sometimes it's a bit of a blur, because although I'm present and I'm listening to the answers, at the same time, I'm always thinking about the next question to ask. Like, I'm thinking of two things, because I'm always trying to think of what is the best question to ask, which is going to follow on from this. And also, I always need to have a question ready to ensure that I can ask it whenever they decide to stop talking. Because if they just stop talking and I don't have anything to ask, then it's just an awkward silence. And I might just blurt out with the most random thing ever. So sometimes I have to re-listen to them to like absorb what was actually said. But getting back to the question, there's no single piece of advice. I think it's just an observation from speaking now to like over 50 very successful people. And they all tend to, first of all, they all work very hard. That's for sure. They're all working their ass off. Second of all, I think they genuinely enjoy what it is that they do. They are very resilient. They're not afraid of failing. They're extremely consistent. And they're very focused. Like, they have a very good ability to minimize distractions. So I think just observing those traits makes me understand that if I want to be at this level or achieve something great, I also need to have those traits. What are the steps you took for your first podcast? How are you keeping it interesting? So the first one was actually Will Ahmed, the founder of Whoop. That kind of came out of nowhere. That was like the catalyst to get this thing up and running, because he was in Dubai. And I was like, oh, do you want to come on the podcast? And he was like, yeah, sure. So that was kind of an easy one, because I've been wearing Whoop since 2021. So I naturally just had a load of questions which I wanted to ask him. But I was so nervous. Like, the night before, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm doing a podcast. Like, how am I going to be able to keep this conversation going for an hour and a half? Like, it was very weird doing something new for the first time. So I actually didn't sleep very well beforehand. And I was quite intimidated to actually be so close to the guest that I was like, I made them sit on the opposite side of this long table to make myself feel more comfortable, which you couldn't really tell in the video when it was edited. But when you looked at it from behind the scenes, it was like, why the hell you guys sat so far away? But I just felt more comfortable doing that. But now I don't care. So yeah, it was a lot of it's kind of trial and error. Obviously, before quite a lot of the podcasts, I do need to do a fair bit of prep. But to begin with, it was just asking people in my circle and people who I kind of knew and admired. So it was like pretty easy to begin with. In order to keep it interesting in the future, it's just a matter of getting people on who I'm genuinely interested and curious about. So I've had a lot of people who I've had to say no to, because I just genuinely am not that interested in what it is that they do or the field that they work in. Like, I would be forcing myself to be interested. I'd be forcing myself to go off and do research and write questions down for this person, which deep down I don't really care about. I'm just doing it for the audience, in which case I'm like, why am I even doing this? So I always want to have people on who I'm genuinely curious about their story, the business they've created, or whatever it is that they've done. So that's the best way to keep it interesting for me. Is there anyone that you've interviewed who you'd want to get into business with? If so, why? It's a good question. I think a lot of the people who I've spoken to, I would definitely trust them in terms of going into business with them, but it depends what it would be. I think two people who stand out just because they're friends, I trust them and it would kind of make sense, is maybe George Heaton. Obviously, he's got Represent. Maybe it would make sense to do a collaboration with Thirst one day, maybe activewear. The same thing with Iman Gadzi. He's got his He's really going big on his eyewear this year. In fact, he's rebranding Gadsby to something else. So we could potentially do something with sunglasses. Sunglasses is no easy thing. It's not like something where you just dip your toes into and be like, yeah, let me just order like 100 units of sunglasses. No, if you want to have some really good sunglasses, like you got to take it seriously. And I like wearing good sunglasses, so I want to do it properly. And then maybe Daniel Priestley. I rate Daniel Priestley highly. He's very, very switched on. And I've had dinner with him a few times, and I like the guy. So if I could potentially do something with him, but we'll see. Top 3 criteria for shortlisting podcast guests. I think first of all, I have to be, as I said before, genuinely interested in what it is they have to say. Second of all, it helps if they have a bit of a social media following, or maybe they've done podcasts before, they have their own audience, which has got quite a lot of views. So there's like some guarantee that, some people are going to want to tune in and listen. And then thirdly, I think for me, if it makes sense for me to have them on, and my audience will appreciate what it is they've got to say. So if I get somebody on who's like an OnlyFans girl, it's like, why are you doing this, Mike? Like, why are you giving this person a platform? Like, why would somebody like me who's listening care about what this person has to say? That's one example. So I have to not only think about it from my perspective and what I would like to talk about, but also the audience. Because now, we've got like 200,000 subscribers. I have a duty to get people on who these people want to listen from. I don't want to waste their time. So, yeah, there's a responsibility for me to do that. What organizational challenges have you encountered in terms of the podcast? How do you prepare for an episode? Seems like a lot of work. There's been a few nightmares when it has come to last minute cancellations. I won't name any names, but that is probably one of the most frustrating things about the podcast, when there's been a few times where I've prepared for a guest, spent a lot of time preparing and researching about them and make sure I ask the right questions, and they cancel last minute. And I'm like, cool, just wasted my whole day. Also have paid for my camera crew to be here. It's extremely frustrating. And honestly, there's been times when that's happened where I have wanted to throw that Rode audio thing out of the window and stop doing this podcast. But I haven't. I've persevered. Luckily, it doesn't happen very often, but yeah, there's been some very frustrating times when it's happened. Second of all, a few logistical issues when I've done remote podcasting. So there's been a few remote episodes I've done. The reason I do that is it gives me an opportunity to speak to people who I would never speak to, because I'm not going to go all the way to friggin' the other side of the world just to have a conversation with them, at least not yet. So it's either nothing at all or do the remote podcast, which is good. It allows me to branch things out a little bit. But there's been a few where, like I like to think I've got a high production quality, like everything looks good, the audio is good, and then on their side it's been absolutely terrible, and it's like, come on, this is like, obviously this is like a big downgrade in terms of what people come to expect in terms of quality. So that's a little bit frustrating. That's about it. The rest of it is just making sure everyone who has their own responsibilities from the team are doing everything they should on time, so that the other person can crack on with the upload and so on. But so far it's pretty good. I think the reason why it's okay is because I'm doing one episode a week, so it's like manageable. If I was to crank it up, that's a better word, like Chris Williamson, who does 3 a week, like that's more of a serious operation, and I would imagine be like more full on, and I probably wouldn't enjoy it. So shout out to Chris for doing 3 a week. Like, that's freaking crazy. Next question: do you think you need an online following before starting a podcast? I don't think you do, but it certainly will help. I think your chances of having a good podcast is if, first of all, you're just a great talker and you're good at asking questions. But also, if you're probably a little bit older, you gain some wisdom, and you have like a good network of people who you could ask on, like within your either friendship group or business group. And then automatically, if you can get 20 episodes out of the way, then you can start to reach out to people who you don't know at all. I think there's a statistic where less than 1% of all podcasts make it past episode 20. And it's true, because everybody likes the idea of doing a podcast, but once you get past talking to like the immediate people in your circle, then you really got to start reaching out to people, and they need a reason to go on. Like, if you don't have much of an audience or a name, then why would they want to go on? Like, the higher profile the person, the more homework they're going to do, and the more valuable their time. So why would they sit down with somebody who, maybe is not guaranteed to give them views? So it's a tricky one. But Chris Williamson didn't have a following when he started his podcast. He just was relentlessly consistent, and has obviously he didn't see much success to begin with, but now he's absolutely killing it, as in, like, literally one of the best in the game. Final question. What are your business goals, and how do you plan on expanding the First Things THRST and Thirst company? The business goals when it comes to the podcast, I'm not treating it really as a money-making venture directly. I could monetize the shit out of it if I wanted to, but as I said before, I'm only ever going to promote my own products and Bionic on this podcast. Maybe that may change, but that's how I plan to do it moving forward. And it's, in terms of a money-making venture so far, I wouldn't say a huge amount of money has come directly from the podcast. I mean, each episode is costing me like well over £1,000 to put together with the team that I have, filming, editing, short form content, thumbnail, intro. And then on top of that, now I've hired a guest booker to make the whole process. Well, I've actually probably got 2 guest bookers now to help me just reach out and get in touch with the people who I just don't have access to. Because really, at the end of the day, like, I can send DMs here, there, and everywhere, but a lot of these people who have millions of followers, they're not really checking DMs unless it's somebody with, like, big boobs and a big bum. So you really need to get in touch with their manager or agent. So that's when I need somebody who can get the in and just make it happen. And to be honest, I don't like spending all my time reaching out to people and trying to make stuff happen. I'd rather just somebody else do that for me and just be like, here, there's a list of people who are interested. Who do you want to speak to? And I'll be like, okay, these people I want to speak to. So the podcast, it needs to kind of make enough money so that I can cover my expenses. But apart from that, like, I just, as I said, I want it to be a platform for me to reach out to people and speak to people who I really want to talk to. And then I guess it's just kind of priceless in terms of what it will do in terms of growing my network and building my personal brand. So it's like delayed gratification. I think I will be reaping the rewards later down in life. And, think about Joe Rogan. He was just starting off doing this for fun, and then before you know it, he's signing a contract with Spotify, which is worth over 100 mil. So it's pretty crazy. I'm doing this for fun right now. I'm not doing it for the money. In terms of my other plans on expanding, I haven't gone through my companies. There's the Thirst app. I've got the Thirst VIP. I've got my clothing company. I've got Digital Playbook. Well, I'm not going to share with you exactly how I'm going to expand them. I think I'm not really the type of person to talk about how I'm going to do something. I'd rather do it, and then if I've done it successfully, then I'll talk about how I've done it. So let's leave it at that, okay? It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this. It's gone fast, hey? Hour and a half of me ranting. Usually when I do the podcasts, I'm not talking a whole lot. I'm letting other people do the talking. So today, you've got an hour and a half of me. So I hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, looking forward to the next guest we have on. We've got a lot of amazing, exciting guests who will be coming through Dubai this winter. The season is well and truly kicking off, and October onwards, it's going to be good, put it that way. So yeah, very soon we'll be hitting 100 episodes, and I'm enjoying the journey. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it too.